Started. Yeah, thanks for bearing with as we do our first in-person and attempting to do hybrid. So yeah, to varying levels of success, but it's happening. So yeah, good to see everyone. Yeah, welcome back to in-person. Yeah, it's good to be back and to see folks, and Happy New Year. And hello virtually also. Yeah, so welcome to the January meeting of the Haight Ashbury Neighborhood Council 2023. I'm David Wu. I'm the board president, and yeah, it's good to see folks. So I think we're just gonna dive into it. Maybe we'll do announcements and updates at the end, just out of respect to the time for our speakers. So today we have two members of the City College Board of Trustees with us. We have Alan Wong and Susan Solomon, and Susan was with us virtually, and Alan is here in the flesh. So I think we'll start off maybe with Alan, and yeah, maybe if, you know, to both of you, if you just want to talk a little bit about, you know, your position on the Board of Trustees for City College, and just what are some of the things you've been working on and some of the issues you've been facing. And I know also questions about the John M. Adams campus. But yeah, I'll give maybe time for both of you to start. Alan can kick us off, and then we'll let both of you speak, and then we'll just do questions, answers, discussion. Sure. You can be in this area, and we'll sorry. Yeah, well, and feel free if you want to sit or stand.
Okay, sounds good. Hello, everybody. My name is Alan Wong, member of the City College Board of Trustees. I was elected in.
The sound is really, really bad.
Okay. My name is Alan Wong.
I'm a member of the Board of Trustees. I was elected in November 2020. Support your local supervisor, Dean Preston, and many others. To tell you a little bit about my background with City College, I was born and raised in San Francisco, and my entire family attended City College. My dad, after he got laid off from a factory job putting together software parts, he went to the City College Chinatown campus, ESL classes, which is English. He learned about the culinary program. That's how he became a local two-unit hotel and supported my family for 2 decades in Sunset, allowing us to live in in-laws in San Francisco. My mom, he took ESL classes as well and helped her integrate and be a happy person. And myself, as a Lincoln High School student, I took various random City College classes to get extra units, and those units gave me the boost I needed to graduate from San Diego. Later on, as a supervisory board and bar, I worked on the legislation to guarantee a decade of free City College, and was able to get that passed as a office. More recently, been working on expanding City College into Sunset. I also worked on what was called the Workforce Education and Recovery Fund. Ultimately, that measure was successful. It's kind of the predecessor to Proposition, which was recently on the ballot as well.
We just had a request that you could speak more slowly. The leg of last talk. The leg, one time, the
delay. Okay, got it. So for me, some of the important, well, speak here a little bit about the John Adams campus first. So John Adams campus, your local neighborhood campus, we have, so recently we actually have a new fire academy building, fire training building that's built there. We spent several $1 million there to build that. And so we use that for fire academy program to train people that are going through that. We've also got a lot of healthcare programs. So our licensed vocational nurses, our CNA program, a lot of our healthcare programs, as well as English as a second language classes. I'm probably missing a whole bunch of the healthcare programs that are also located there, but in general, it offers the vocational health and fire science programs as well as the ESL, which is being offered there. In terms of my focus for the coming year, what I care about is making sure that we move forward in college. over the past few years, there's been just a lot of devastating news that's related. There's people on the side that care about funding and supporting the college are seeing spiraling cuts at the college, and they're seeing a lot of negative things happen. And then in terms of the perspective of the people that are more fiscally conservative, they constantly city colleges asking for money, and not seeing things change. And so I think from different ends of the kind of political belief spectrum in San Francisco, people are generally they feel there's a discontent with college and a desire for change. So one thing I think is really important is restoring stability at college, and so that we're not at the point where we're constantly having layoffs of faculty and constantly having that news put out there. So restoring stability at our college and working towards growth again, so that we can have a college campus that can truly support our teachers and represent the vision of a community college that's not just serving folks that are going there to transfer to a four-year institution, but as a large urban community college district, the vision to serve our broader community, to serve people and even parents that are immigrants wanting to be able to learn English and get a good job, or folks that want to have lifelong learning after they have finished their careers to continue with their personal and professional program, as well as workforce development. So restoring stability at college. We have labor negotiations. Yeah.
Okay, we're trying it with my phone now.
So I want to work closely with our trustees, Trustee Solomon, Trustee Rita Martinez, and Trustee Big Chung, to make sure that we're restoring trust in our district, and especially with the two very experienced labor negotiators and labor activists, Trustee Martinez and Trustee Solomon, that they bring to the table. So I think one of the big things is when we're bargaining with our labor unions, making sure there's mutual trust and respect, and that hasn't always happened. There's a lot of unilateral actions that have happened. So I think one big thing is getting us on the same page. How much money does the college have? How much can we bargain? And so that's been one of the constant points between both the district and our labor folks. And so just getting us on the same page so that we can have fair bargaining for our district, and making sure that we're moving in a path as well that demonstrates to the public that we are financially stable. Some of the reforms that I've brought to the college are ensuring that we're having monthly budget updates at every single meeting, so that we as trustees can hold the administration accountable. Right when I got elected, I made sure that we started having that. Now, in the past few months, I made a change to our board policies that require those monthly updates, as well as if we go into deficit spending, or if we're spending more than what we have in our budget, it requires notice to the Board of Trustees and 2/3 approval before that can happen. In the past, during past budgets, we have, in our proposed budget for the fiscal year, our budget administrators have put in numbers, expecting expenditures that were much significantly lower than what we ended up spending. And later on, when I asked our administrators, why is our expected spending so much lower than what we ended up spending in the year? And what they told me was they basically expected that to happen, but they wanted to give us a budget that was
Excuse me. Excuse me. The sound is very bad. We're having terrible reverb and echoing. And also, Alice, if you could please mute, we can hear you. I know you don't realize. Please, or Dave. Thank you.
Okay.
No, I'm off. It must be there.
Thank you, you guys. Thank you.
So I don't know. So I don't know about you guys, but I would rather have a real budget than a budget that is fake, that makes us look good on paper, but then we find out at the end of the fiscal year that we end up spending way more than we actually have. So making sure that we're holding our administration accountable to accurate budget numbers, ensuring that we are projecting our spending correctly so that we don't end up having a deficit and end up having to make devastating cuts in the future. So making sure that we regain stability at the college, restoring trust with our community and our constituency groups at the college, and gaining stability. Those are my priorities as we venture into the fiscal end of the year.
That somebody was live tweeting into the chat to help with the sound. So I think
yeah, I know what I'm doing. It's just a lot of parts.
Do you want to take questions now and then switch?
I think maybe thank you. First, thank you, Alan. Thanks for going through this live. Maybe we'll, if we're ready, and let's go, and then we'll just do questions at the end.
Okay, sounds good. Questions at the end.
Does that work? We could do. Yeah, no, it's fine.
So I'll turn.
Yeah. So maybe. Yeah, I think. Well. Oops.
I have my volume turned off. I can turn it on if you want.
That's good. Yeah. So we'll have I think Susan go now, if that works for you, Susan, and then we'll do questions after for both Susan and Alan.
Okay, thank you, David. And hi, everyone. Thanks for inviting me. And I want to say, normally I would attend in person, but tonight Zooming gave me the ability to go from one meeting here in the co-op where I live to this meeting. So thank you for that. And I also want to thank the many people at this meeting who supported our campaign. That's what got us elected, was the people doing the work. And thank you so much. I'm also really glad that Fannie Law is here, instructor at City College, because I've already learned so much from her. And some of what I have to say tonight, she could say better. I already know that. I also want to say I really appreciate the excellent questions you sent to us in advance. It's a little hard to know where to start because they're also such good questions. Some of what I would say Alan already covered, so I won't repeat what he said. We do specifically need to, as a board of trustees, learn to work together on common goals. We do have some common goals. And I want to make sure we follow up. I follow up, we follow up on what we campaigned on. Figuring out how to rescind layoffs and grow the college. Make sure the registration system upgrade happens because that's a big problem. And then to do the outreach we talked about to increase enrollment at the college, because we're kind of in a chicken or egg situation, which I haven't framed it this way before, but this is what I mean. The reason given for the unacceptable layoffs was not enough funding because there weren't enough. One of the reasons given was there was decreased attendance at City College as one of the reasons. So, but when we cut staffing and cut classes, then that leads to fewer classes being available, which leads to decreased attendance. So we really need to be student-centered and figure out what we need for students. And some of that would be data-driven. What do students need? What classes must we have? How many sections must we have? And that is what I would say is a knowable knowledge. And, you know, your question about what can the public, we as the public do to help is keep doing what you're doing. Let us know what you want from your city college. Don't wait to be asked. And we need to know what San Franciscans need from their college. I kind of want to jump to what the plans are for the John Adams campus. And again, so much of this I learned from Fanny. I'm not happy about the current plans. The current plans, as I understand them, don't make sense to me. The idea is to eliminate all ESL and English 1A classes from the John Adams campus and move them to the Mission campus and maybe Chinatown campus, I'm not sure. So short term, theoretically, this wouldn't decrease the number of sections, they would just be moved. But our fear is that in the long term, it will lead to a decrease in sections because there are students who go to John Adams campus for classes because they can get there. They simply cannot travel across town to the Mission campus to take the classes they need. They've got kids to take care of, elders to take care of, multiple jobs to get to. It's not going to be, they won't be able to travel sometimes, you know, an hour each way to go to classes. So, and that's the whole idea behind the satellite campuses, is to make classes available to people all over the city. And Alan touched on that, some of the work that he's done in this area. So it doesn't make sense to me. I don't know why it would be necessary to consolidate classes all at one campus. And there's enough space at John Adams. Space is not the issue here. So that's something that I am hoping we can address and reverse the plans. It's going to be tough, but I think we need to do that. There is a facilities master plan that I'm interested in. Several years ago, the voters of San Francisco approved an $845 million bond to upgrade the campuses. It's a great plan, actually. It's a lot of reading. It's good to see it. Now that I'm starting to hear from people about how some of the facilities lack enough heat, it's really cold in the classrooms, ventilation is poor, the ceilings are crumbling. I want to know to what extent the facilities master plan can address those issues. And some of the work is underway, but how do we expedite the work so that the plan can be implemented sooner rather than later? And I think I'll stop at this point because I know that we need to have time for questions. So thanks very much.
Okay, there you go.
All right, I'm gonna. Thanks. Great. Yeah. Thank you, Susan. Yeah, we can just go into a question. Maybe I'll turn here. Oh. All right, there, yeah, okay, I think you can hear me. So yeah, and yeah, we can just open it up. Thank you so much, Susan and Alan, and yeah, we can open it up to questions. Maybe we'll do, if there's any in the room, and we get some on there. But yeah, any questions folks have for either Susan or Alan?
You have some folks in the
all right, we'll do, maybe, yeah, go ahead, Peter. Yeah, maybe you could just state that. Yeah,
I think they can hear you.
Yeah.
Face or
you just speak. Yeah.
Here's the camera right here.
Okay. I think there's shortly before COVID, City College cut more than 300, some 300 classes or more, including many that were extremely well attended, and in particular decimated the decimated the older adult program, which had a long history at City College of some 45 years. And that ultimately was part of what seemed a plan to close Alan, what's the north end? My mind is going to Fort Mason. And it seems there's a larger problem of generally a direction of City College and basically chopping off the parts that would make it a community college and turn it into basically a junior college that's focused on getting folks through to a 2-year program or a transfer to a 4-year program. So I think there are much larger questions. All the stories we heard about poor attendance were just nonsense with respect to many of the classes, some of which I attended, in particular art classes in the older adult program. So I think there's a real question as to where is the funding coming from? What are the trustees doing to keep City College a community college for the city and do all of the things that Alan referenced, such as English as a second language, the vocational kinds of things, the older adult program, which instead of being killed off completely, just was left at something like 3 classes. And those are the larger questions. I think the competency questions and the questions of how are you following, those are all, I assume, improvements over the always problematic previous administration. But I think that the newcomers, the 3 newcomers who were voted in to replace old timers, I think might have something to say about what their goals are. But I'm particularly interested in keeping City College for all of the people that you mentioned, people that I've mentioned, older adults, vocational things, and not just shrinking to a junior college.
Yes, so with City College, there's that constant tug of war between the institution's mission and goals as an institution that helps students transfer to 4-year universities, as well as their broader community mission. And as San Francisco, we have a broader mission than just a transfer institution. So do some other large urban districts such as LA. But one thing that's been hurting us is structurally, the state has been really not supportive of this. The way that they changed their state funding formula for our community colleges has disadvantaged community colleges like San Francisco and LA. So we need to make sure that one thing is structurally pushing against our state to get those changes in how they fund our community college institutions, which disfavors our local community college and the LA community college that has these broader community mission. And as a trustee back in this past year and the previous year, I opposed the cuts that the administration had us vote on, because I felt that it was important to ensure that we protect these classes, and also just as somebody that's been a labor advocate, ensuring that we have a fair process in negotiations. What I've seen is that a lot of unilateral actions are often taken. Back during the most recent vote, what I saw was that the same offer that the administration gave was the same offer that the trustees ultimately had to vote on at the end. And what I saw is, as somebody that believes in collective bargaining and labor negotiations, is that there is no attempts to have discussion or bargaining to even try to attempt some sort of compromise. I would expect that my administration bargains until midnight every night, past midnight every night, as we're going into that deadline, so that we're reaching a deal that can be acceptable. That's what I expect to see. And that did not happen at all to even reach any sort of mutual consensus between labor and the district. So in terms of the city, I think that with the Proposition O, it's very unfortunate that that measure was not successful. I do think that there's still other opportunities to also get funding, just like SFUSD has from the city locally as well, because there's as we know from Propo, there's a huge demand and support for our programs at City College. The other thing is, as I mentioned earlier, holding our administration accountable to ensure that we have budget transparency. when we've gotten budget numbers before, they have been inaccurate, and it's led to devastating cuts. For example, the cuts of the 300 or so classes that you mentioned earlier, that was after all of a sudden a huge deficit just popped out of nowhere, and the administration stated that they needed to make cuts to their classes. So I think there are various ways that you all in the community can come out and support us at supporting future funding measures on the ballot, coming out to public comment, and supporting us as an institution that supports our broader community as well.
Great, thank you, Alan. And yeah, just to give Susan a chance if you want to respond at all.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I'm really glad this question was asked because it's something I actually meant to mention, and it's about the state funding formula that Alan touched on in his response. So it's called a student-centered funding formula, but it doesn't really center on all students. The funding formula centers on students who can go to school full-time, who matriculate, who transfer to four-year colleges. And City College should, of course, also support those students, but that's not who we are. City College is for part-time students, for students who need to take some classes, who are lifelong learners, all these things that you all know. And so that is not, because it's at the state level, we can't just vote at a Board of Trustees meeting to change it. That won't do it. We are responsible, I believe as trustees, we are responsible for working at the state level in conjunction and in cooperation with other community college districts around the state to advocate at the state level for a change in the funding formula. And that's a commitment that we made while we were campaigning, and that we will definitely need to hold to, because we're going to continue to be harmed at City College. And in terms of collective bargaining, since I was on the other table for United Educators of San Francisco for 20 years, I know what it's like. And yeah, stay till midnight if that's what you got to do. But we have to make sure that that workers of all the various unions at City College have an authentic voice. And I fully expect to be accused of being a tool of workers. I can happily live with that.
Thank you. I see we have a few hands up. Does whoever's iPhone want to ask a question? You're already unmuted, I think.
Okay, I think that's me. This is Karen.
Hey, Karen.
Just a couple of things, FYI. Alan, I could not hear your initial presentation. Now with your responses to the questions, things are working well and I can hear everything you say. So you may have touched on this in your initial presentation. But I am concerned about John Adams, and I've heard what they're proposing to eliminate at that site, but I don't understand how they propose to use that site. And we've heard a rumor that there's discussion of closing it and selling the property.
Is that my time to answer?
Yeah.
I would, in terms of any sort of college or public property in general, I support keeping as much public property as we can, and I would oppose any sort of effort to sell any of our property. I think that's an investment in the future, and if we sell land in San Francisco, we might never get it back, and we should always be keeping it for public purposes. So in terms of the classes at the ESL classes, yes, so recently what happened with the ESL classes is our administration, basically they a bunch of our ESL classes from our John Adams campus to Mission campus. And so what they were saying was that they wanted to centralize those classes at one location. The negative impact of this is obviously it takes away classes here for serving our community. I met with both of the instructors that teach ESL here, and they mentioned the camaraderie of the students, the Ukrainian students that they serve, as well as how even though the classes, if they're moved elsewhere,
maybe it will reduce some of the class sizes at Mission, but it will also, the students that attend here may also be permanently lost because they're not likely, because of their life circumstances and situations, not going there. So, I think it's really important that we actually consult with our faculty when making these decisions, and ensure that we're listening to our constituent voices. And so I do think it's very important to make sure that we're engaging those voices. And so this decision at John Adams, it's something that our administration moved forward with.
So is there a plan for use of John Adams property?
John Adams property. So I think continuing to ensure that we support all of our programs that we have there. So we have a growing fire science program. Recently, I met with the local 798, the firefighters union. They're interested in helping support their firefighters with getting more paramedics to serve our city. There's a shortage of paramedics, utilizing it to support our workers at Kaiser, at our St. Mary's, that need healthcare workers that are getting trained to support the healthcare needs of our city. So I think those are some of the immediate programs that we need to continue to support and engage. In terms of, if you have any suggestions in terms of potential new programs or anything that we can add there, I would like to also listen to any input and feedback that you might have as well.
Let's go to the next.
Thank you.
Next one.
Yeah, Danielle, go ahead.
Yeah, hi. I'm curious if there's ever been thoughts of maybe having City College not be totally free. Like, I think that having it be free is really great, but I'm also, like I can have free City College, but also if I was able to pay like $100 for my class, I would. So I don't really have any thoughts about how that would ever work out, but just kind of an idea, maybe like sliding scale classes or something. So it's like, could be like some funding for people who are able to pay for classes or want to pay for classes. More of a statement, I guess. And then also in terms of programming, I feel like if our community college could add like cosmetology, I know that is really popular in other community colleges, and San Francisco doesn't have that, and our cosmetology schools here are super expensive, so it might be a really could be a really popular program.
Yeah, maybe Susan, do you maybe want to respond if you have any response first?
Yes, thanks. And thanks for the suggestion about cosmetology. I've actually heard that before. It's something I learned. So something to look into. In terms of whether there should be a fee for some people, I've also heard that come up from a couple of people. And I think it would be so difficult to administer, because that would mean collecting information about everybody's income. And I think it could potentially harm people who are undocumented, who are here taking classes. So I do, and I just really love the idea of having a free education for all adult learners. So it does mean, of course, having to have revenue sources. It's a problem we have throughout the state of California for all of public education. So we have to be looking at the long view. How do we maintain it?
So as a legislative aide in Supervisor Marr's office, I was part of the process of drafting the current Free City College agreement that we have in place right now. And so one of the philosophical questions that we had was whether there should be kind of means-based or whether it should be free for all. And ultimately, the principle of having free education for all people that attended City College was something that was decided by the core group of that worked on getting Free City College passed. However, a lot of people have also brought up to me that, hey, I have the means and I can pay for this. Why why can't I pay for it if I want to? So under the current system, so back in 2016, Jane Kim passed this a discretionary tax measure on real estate transfers that generates about $30 to $38 million to the city. And during the first 2 years in the pilot program, about $8 million of that was spent on City College through an MOU between the city and City College. After the agreement that Supervisor Ma worked on, it guarantees $15 million and it increases each year. And so what that funding does is it doesn't go into the City College budget, which is a common kind of, and the Free City College doesn't come out of City College's budget at all. The Free City College money comes out of this pot of money that the city has set aside that helps directly pay for the tuition of students. So, so sometimes people say, hey, if you're giving free tuition for people that maybe some of the fiscal conservatives often say, hey, like why is City College having all these fiscal issues when it's giving free tuition? Well, actually, Free City doesn't hurt our college at all because it's not out of City College's budget and it encourages people to attend. Now, getting back to the question about having means, looking at means, I would say, because so many people have brought this up, I'm open to the idea of actually having maybe a donation option where people can, hey, if the city is already paying for your tuition, but if you love City College for so much and you can afford it, would you be willing to donate maybe the equivalent of what your tuition is to the college? So that's something that I'd be willing to, but that would be voluntary. And looking into that, I think there'd be legal questions about like whether the college can accept that. So I think that's something that I'm willing to investigate, and that's something I've been kind of mulling over as people have brought this issue up to me. And also, like, I think it's very important to talk to the stakeholders that brought forward the Free City coalition as well, because that might be something that I want to broach this idea with core stakeholders before moving forward, because I think they may be thinking about something that I haven't as well. So those are some of my thoughts around the payment for tuition at City College.
Great, thank you. Before we go to the next question, I forgot to announce before, Flywheel has been kind enough to stay open for us. So there's drinks you can purchase. If you would like anything, patronize Flywheel. Yeah, thank you for being here. So yeah, just so you know. Yeah, is there any do folks here have a question? I know there's more hands up, but I want to give folks here who's questions. All right, Harry, do you want to ask your question?
You speaking to me on the computer? Okay, thank you. Thank you so much for having this tonight. I wasn't aware of this before. One thing I'd say is I remember hearing the statistic that relatively 1 in 7 San Franciscans had taken a class at City College. One thing that I feel is missing compared to a lot of schools is there's really not an active alumni organization. If that was established, not only would that keep the public involved, would be a source of funding, but also of outside political pressure that supports the college. So that's one thing. Susan mentioned the student data-driven and responding to student demand. What's a problem that I've noticed is that the administration will say that they want to support students, but then they will cut programs that students demonstrated that they wanted because they were taking the programs and earning the certificates. And floristry, metal arts, motorcycle program, biotech. Some of the most valued programs were the ones that were on the cutting block. I knew one student who changed her major twice because they kept gutting the programs that she was in and she couldn't complete a certificate. And that's almost criminal. So if we want to have, and back to Susan, just the difference between the board, which I feel was happening following the dictates of the chancellor, or having the chancellor follow the intentions and the goals of the board. That is, I think, the way it should be, but it's often been the opposite. So thank you. And yes, for the older adults program.
Thanks, Harry. I don't know if anyone wants to comment on more like a comment on it, but yeah. Whoever D Selig.
Yeah. Hi.
Hi.
Hi. I'm a City College ESL teacher, and I've worked at John Adams off and on since 1991. So I just want to thank Susan and Alan for being here. And I would be shocked if they got rid of John Adams. I think what they've talked about is they want to get all their healthcare programs there, move them out of Ocean and bring them over there, which I don't know. I think not everyone's on board with that, but I think that's what the administration's goal is. As to moving ESL, it made no sense. It wasn't a financial thing. They didn't say it was financial. And what Alan said, what the previous dean, who was interim, just said, we're going to centralize all this, which is, it's crazy. Our students cannot travel from too far from either where they live or work or where their kids go to school, you know, and I really am afraid we're going to lose. I mean, we already were hurt badly by COVID, and then several other reasons our classes got cut last semester, but we were going to have 13. We were going to have 13 classes this semester, and they just got rid of all of them. So I think one of the problems for John Adams is we don't have a particular community. Chinatown has the predominantly the Chinese community. Mission has a Spanish-speaking community. So we don't have strong community groups because we are truly multicultural. I would have as many as 15 different nationalities in one class. Susan came to the rally we had at Mission a couple of months ago, and she saw all the different nationalities that came out. It was amazing. So I don't know what we could do to get some more community support, but maybe you guys could encourage your organizations or whatever to help us fight. We're going to try to get it back. We're going to ask to have classes in the fall. And hopefully with the board's help, it will happen, but there's going to be damage already done. We will have lost people. So thank you for having this meeting, and thank you. Yeah, thank you. And if anybody has any specific questions about ESL, Fanny Law, who was the coordinator, the ESL coordinator, she's on this call as well as I am. So I know we'd both be happy to answer any questions if you have any. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Yeah, thanks for joining us, and Fanny also. Alice.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Sorry about that earlier. We weren't quite set up. And I wanted to thank both Alan and Susan for explaining the background and highlighting where the cuts are coming from. So apparently they don't really want City College to be for everyone. They want it to be a kind of junior college that feeds into the state universities, if anything. And I, as a teacher, benefited from the evening classes they used to offer in Spanish, and hope to do Chinese as well. As a music teacher, I teach children of all different nationalities. And so they benefited when I was learning Spanish. And I wondered how they justify that, and what's the position of our representatives to the state legislature, Scott Wiener being one. Are they in favor of turning it into a kind of, do you agree that it's effectively turning it into a junior college? And what is the position or the policies of our own representatives to the state legislature?
I do not know what Senator Wiener's position on this is.
Susan,
Yeah, go ahead.
You know, I don't either. That's a great question, Alice. We actually need to find out because those are the people we have to lobby. Matt Haney and Phil Ting. We have to lobby them. And Scott Wiener.
Yeah, because it's quite an outrageous statement that basically they don't want City College to be for everyone. It's now going to be a limited entity. So, I mean, that's driving the different aspects of, you know, trying to limit to different campuses. But yeah, thanks. So if you can, maybe we can do a little bit more on that and get something in writing so we can perhaps publicize what their attitudes are. From them. Thank you.
Glenn.
Hello, Susan and Alan. Thank you for being here tonight. I wanted to just throw in another word on the ESL, but that's exactly the kind of program that you want to have diversified around the school, because if you make a successful Michigan campus, John Adams Medical Campus, some of your people are going to be taking ESL classes. So all of a sudden they're in the middle of their program, they've got here, but then they have to go across town to get that one class. That doesn't make sense. On the other side though, I worked for City College for 30 years as a classified. And at one point in time, we had something like, we were giving classes in 116 different places across the city. And that was a bit too diverse. But still I went through when the state was actively funding, actively cutting us. Like you get to January in a fiscal year that started on July 1st. And the governor would take 10 million away from your budget. And as you got to March, they take another 10 million away from the budget. And I don't know, are those games still happening? So you would start off the semester trying to cut, as Alan was talking about different things with the budget, you couldn't know how much you're going to actually have, even when it's marked down and saying you get this much. Anyway, that's problematic, and we got a long fight to go.
Yeah, if Susan or Alan, do you have any thoughts or response?
I agree. It doesn't make any sense to move ESL classes off the John Adams campus because those will be some of the same students who are taking the classes that are there. And the state budget is going to be an ongoing problem that we have to deal with. Having come out of pre-K to 12th grade education, we are in a state that does not adequately value public education. And that's why we have to work at the state level also. We got to take another try it at defeating Prop 13. It's the law, yeah. It's a reality we live in.
I just want to say something about John Adams. If you look at it geographically, it's central to the entire city. And this is a hub for Muni. There's all kinds of Muni lines that come through here. And you can even take the N Judah and take the 43. It'll take you right to the front door. It's a very quick trip. So, I also think that that's also one of the things that isn't really discussed or highlighted enough about that particular campus. Plus support our neighborhood here.
One thing I want to highlight is also there is a dwarf of City College offerings on the west side of the city. If you look at some of the maps of City College, are based really west of the main campus. There isn't anything that's provided, and so that's why one of the things I worked on was expanding City College into the Sunset. And I also recognize that in so many of the other neighbors in the west side, we don't really have neighborhood community offerings to help make it accessible to people all across our city. And many people do attend based on geographic need, right? If you look at for our students, the biggest, so the area with the highest rate of people coming to City College is the neighborhood directly around City College to its south. So the Excelsior, the Mission area, those are some of our core areas where we get students. So it's very important that we're making sure that we're geographically diverse and ensuring that we can make City College accessible for all. In terms of our state funding, I do think it is very important to ensure that we're getting that support from our state level so that we get that equitable funding for a broader set of community serving programs that have been historically undervalued by the state system. So I do think that we need to work as advocates, as trustees, to be lobbyists for the college at the state level and pushing that and getting our state legislators to support us as well.
Great, thank you.
Yeah. I'm just wondering, does the City College have a marketing budget?
City College does have some money that it uses to market, but it's very the budget. I don't remember the exact number, but it's probably around $1 million or less.
I was going to say, I seem to recall that sometimes I would get a catalog of classes. I can't remember how frequent that is, and if that was something I requested, or was that
so yeah. as a youth, actually, that's how I saw a lot of my classes. I just got it mailed to my home, and I just kept scrolling through and just checking out what are the offerings, and it got me curious as to what sort of classes there are. So that has been discontinued. Our administration has basically mentioned that they don't think that's an effective use of sending it out. So I like to see if we can figure out how we can do something like that. I don't know, like if the administration is saying that, is there a way where we can get emails of all the people that live in the city, or if we look through the voter database, folks in the city. So if they're saying that's not cost effective, what are some other ways? I think I've asked for like numbers from our administrators on how much that would cost, and I think they might have, I might be wrong. So, but I think it was like $600,000 if I recall correctly. So I think just looking at some of the options are, okay, if not that, then is there any other way to get the catalog out? With a PDF, so many people can also access it. So one of the things that I did while working on getting enrollment for City College Sunset was literally I wasn't even City College staff, I was the HA supervisor Mar, working on getting a flyer out and getting our local community groups to distribute the flyer, the class offerings, so that people that are part of those nonprofits or associations, they're hearing about these classes and they're enrolling in it. So just Fanny, who was part of one of our enrollment fairs, and she's done a lot of community work to help support our classes. And so we as an institution really need to do more of that sort of work and be getting out there.
I guess I would say certainly there are email lists for groups like ours and groups like merchant associations and so on. So we could potentially use that as a tool. But yeah, absolutely. I think it makes sense to investigate ways to get the word out about college. I don't know if the goal is to increase enrollment significantly, or if that would also create financial pressure on the institution.
To distribute to work on that. I mean, if it's a PDF, like I don't see how like if some half-time staff person could do all that outreach, right? In terms of getting, I think the mailing and the paper is what costs. Probably the mailing is what's the significant cost, but really like a half FTE staff person, that's probably enough time set aside to actually do all that outreach into the community.
Or would like the uni allow them to advertise for you, maybe?
I don't know about that. We've asked them for subsidized student passes, and we were told, oh, that'll cost you $20 million. So I don't know, because it takes away revenue from their other advertising, right? So I personally doubt that we get free advertising space.
Yeah.
I hate to be repetitive. In various places, I've mentioned the City and County of San Francisco Digital Equity Strategic Plan, which at the appendices has surveys of who has access to computers and the internet from home and who does not. And there's a huge disparity in access for all of the so-called vulnerable populations, including many of the folks that I'm sure City College would like to reach. Financially, $25,000 and less a year, it said 59% had access to the internet from home. Over $200,000 income a year, 98%. Minorities have much less access. Older people have much less access. Those who are not fluent in English have much less access. Disabled people have much less access. So while I don't have a problem with computerized internet, whatever you want to put out there, but I do think that, as somebody said, and for myself as well, those catalogs reach anybody and everyone who may be able to cast an eye on them. And I think that having, the idea that City College doesn't even have a catalog, to me is quite shocking. It seems like it's asking for enrollment drops and invisibility to the very people that need the most. And I don't think you should exclude print information in any effort you have for informing people of what's available. Thank you.
There's a catalog online, right? Yes. It's not that they did away with the printed catalog.
So that's
all. Yeah.
How would I know if there's how would I know there's a new semester? How would I know if I don't know where to go and know where to go, as opposed to having these things all over places, libraries, city hall, wherever people go? And as somebody said, flyers, bus stops could be a place where you have some kind of, just like when the community puts out, we want your opinion, text us. So there's a whole range of ways, including where we used to be, which is send catalogs. And I think that would be tremendously valuable. How would somebody know there's a new semester starting? How would somebody know what programs are available? How would somebody know that if they're interested in trying something new or anything, even English as a second language, and all of those other programs that don't lead necessarily to a degree, how would folks know and a larger community know to go to this particular place, this particular spot on either your electronic connection or get it from somebody else, friend or library or whatever. When it comes to the mailbox, when it's out and about in the city in all kinds of places, cafes and others that I mentioned, I think you've got a lot more visibility for folks as to what's being done.
Thank you.
Thanks. Lisa, go ahead.
I just sort of have a comment. There are just so many excellent questions and answers and so much good information in this meeting. I greatly benefited from my time. I studied landscaping at those classes helped me transition into my current work as a landscaper. And my point really is that I think there is a sleeping giant. There's a very diverse group of San Franciscans, young and old, different incomes, who really value City College. And I mean, I still don't understand what happened with Prop O, honestly, but it seems like, I don't know that I'm wrong about this. In the past, San Francisco voters have supported funding City College and believe it is a really precious public resource. And the comments that were made about no alumni association, it just seems like in this conversation, what's becoming clearer and clearer is a lack of knowledge. The public isn't really informed about all the nefarious, funky things that are going on. And there's a big disconnect. And I think that I also live a block away from the campus, and it would really behoove all of us to get more engaged if we value this thing and to really make that known on a micro level. It feels very like a David and Goliath thing, because it feels like an uphill battle, but I think that the lack of community or citizen engagement is an issue, and we as citizens who value should really be thinking about ways we can engage our neighbors. And I used to always get a catalog in the mail, you know, and that was how I knew what was, and I'm not sure exactly when that stopped. I'm sure it was to save money, but also, you know, at the laundromat or at the local cafes, there were always these, the catalogs, and now no more. So anyway, those are my thoughts. And thank you so much to Susan and Ellen for being here, and to everyone for all their excellent comments and questions.
People love the catalogs. Yeah, I think some of the only times I've looked at City College classes have been through when I get the catalog in the mail. Yeah, thank you, Lisa. Yeah, one question I had was, and sorry if it was covered and this is repetitive, but like with COVID and the pandemic, how has that affected City College and like some of the things you've been describing? Because like City College was under attack before the pandemic, so I'm assuming it just exacerbated everything. But like at this point also, like what is it, 2-3 years later, 2 years? Yeah, kind of where.
Yeah. So when COVID hit, it did exacerbate our issues around our enrollment, and so after Free City College passed, the enrollment did go up, and then it plateaued and then continued the downward trend. As we've regained some stability, though, as of the enrollment for this semester, we've compared to the last semester, we've actually, instead of having continued declining enrollment, we've reached a level of kind of a plateau in that. And so we've reached the point where we're not going down anymore. So now I think one goal is to actually get it to go up as opposed to just plateau or keep going down. And so COVID also had our faculty make immense changes and sacrifices, having to pivot pretty much overnight to figuring out how to teach online. And also, like, yeah, I think it was also led to some innovation to a lot of our students actually, because, you know, we're not a K through 12 public school. A lot of our adult students actually enjoy having online classes as well. So I think having a mix of both online and in-person classes is a very healthy way to go. I think it's a matter of kind of figuring out the balance and what's in the best interest of students going forward.
Yeah, I don't know, Susan, if you had any thoughts, or I think we're probably close to wrapping up with you both also. Yeah, go ahead. Renee.
Well, I really raised my hand because Trustee Anita Martinez is here on this call. So any time that's left, I would love to yield to Anita if you want to want to talk, Anita.
Please, yeah. Hi, sorry we can't see everyone in here, but yeah, please, Anita, if you're here and available, any thoughts or comments or anything you want to throw in would be great.
Yeah, I'm so sorry that.
Hey, yeah, we can. Nope.
Are you? Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, I'm so sorry. I just learned about the meeting. Otherwise, I would have been here earlier. Susan and I were elected along with Vic to address some of the issues that I believe are being brought up at this meeting. And I'd like to, after the meeting finishes, I notice the meeting is being recorded, go back and view the recording so I can familiarize myself with those issues. But I think we have a good set of trustees now who are prepared to address these issues. I myself have been at City College until I retired for 30 years. And I worked there when City College was at its peak. And there are probably others here in the audience who also work there. And we want to see it return to that status, to be the community college that we all love. I'm appalled that the calendars are not going out and that the class schedules are not going out. And I have to tell you that the last time, if you received a postcard, that was through a lot of lobbying and the hard work of individuals who are not on campus necessarily, but who lobbied and actually helped produce those cards. We need a public information officer who can be in charge of those kinds of things. And we need some real discussion at board meetings in terms of how, as Trustee Wong said, how we grow our enrollment. And I think all of us have some ideas about how we can do that. I know I've been at other colleges where they have been able to grow enrollment. We really need to examine the budget to see where there might be some funds that we can put towards this effort, because we know that growing our budget and growing enrollment, they kind of go hand in hand. And it's a question of which one you grow first in order to grow the other one. But I think there's a way that we can figure it out. And I'm committed to doing that, as I think as Susan. And I won't speak for Trustee Wong, but I imagine because he was speaking about enrollment that he is also committed to this as well.
Great. Yeah. Thank you. Thanks so much, Anita, for hopping on and also chiming in. And yes, congratulations to both you and Susan. I think we're all very happy that you were elected. So yeah,
Thank you.
Great company. Yeah. Yeah. If there's any other questions, yeah, I think we can wrap up. So yeah, again, want to thank Alan and Susan for joining us. It was really great to have you both here.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
I appreciate the work and the coming work that I'm sure you all will do. So yeah, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
All right, so we're still going. We're gonna pivot to just talking a little bit just about opening back up, and yeah, just I guess kind of folks journey a little bit and how things have been just going generally for people of, going through the pandemic, and now, even Hank, we were on Zoom, and now just things have been so slowly and quickly opening up. But just wanted to hear just folks in Hank and membership, just how that experience has been for you, and just anything that people want to share. And also, alternatively, as a topic, just what are things that you think Hank could focus on for the new year in terms of meetings and topics, if there's anything that you all are interested in or would like to hear from. So yeah, go, Kristen.
Oh, I was just going to mention, I didn't know people had interest in having the new park station captain come. We have talked about inviting meetings in the future. I don't know if people feel that should be a priority or not. I have people speak with monthly meetings anyway. People feel strongly one way or another who just invite the captain of park station.
Yeah, what do folks think?
That's all one side of the road. But maybe not an overwhelming, like definitely kind of thing. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, someone good.
Excuse me, Kristen, you're a tiny bit garbled. So for anyone who didn't hear, I believe Kristen just said, going forward, does the community, do Hank members and members of the public have interest in inviting the new park police station captain, Captain Haight, to attend one of our meetings and introduce himself and have some engagement?
Yeah, no, any thoughts from folks on Zoom? We had maybe called a lukewarm reaction in the room.
Well, it is something the board has conversed about, and I think it's something we plan to do.
Yeah, I think that's kind of what Kristen was saying. It was something the board had discussed. I just wanted to see if folks had their opinions or feelings about it, if that's something we should do. some bites, not a ton.
I have a couple of announcements.
Some announcements. Yeah. Sure. Well, yeah, maybe we'll do announcements in a few minutes. Just
Okay.
I'll put it up if others just want to share on anything or how, or even just general feelings about Hank coming back into person. And I know this is a learning lesson today for us. But yeah, go ahead, Nora.
Can I go up there?
Yeah.
That might help.
Very well.
Okay. Yeah, my name is Norm Degelman, and I'm interested in the Laguna Honda Hospital issue. There was an article in, was it last month, I believe, about Laguna Honda, and so I've been going to the meetings at Department of Health that's focused on Laguna Honda, and just kind of getting my feet wet around the issues and stuff. And the Great Panthers have been also involved in it too. If I could just read a few of the issues here I've got.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah.
Please.
Let's see, this is put out by the Great Panthers, and please tell the Health Commission and the Board of Supervisors, residents already discharged by force must be allowed to return. No closure. Funding for existing residents must continue until recertification. No loss of beds in this nearly new facility. No forced discharges of skilled nursing facility eligible residents under any circumstances. No discharge for non-SNF eligible residents until safe and local arrangements are made. We demand transparency and planning changes of Laguna Honda Hospital's policies and operations. And they've been having a number of closed door meetings about this, and people are really upset. Prevent inappropriate, unnecessary, illegal, and unsafe nursing home admissions. SFDPH must stop the flow project of ZSF FGH patients and return admissions decisions to dedicated LHH staff who understand how a nursing home operates. SFDPH and government agencies above it, including state and federal, must provide sufficient mental health and substance use programs and residential beds to give people the care they need. Also, sufficient services must be provided for elders and people with disabilities to stay in their communities where possible. And Laguna Honda must be open to all San Franciscans who need nursing home care. Restore admissions to Laguna Honda Hospital. So that's, I'm kind of learning as I go along here.
Yeah.
But there's another meeting in front of the Department of Health next Tuesday, January 17th. And it starts at 4 o'clock and it's online. So that's all I can say. Thank you.
Next Tuesday, 4 o'clock.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, thank you, Norm. Yeah, I definitely agree. That's a big, very important topic. Yeah, thank you for suggesting that. I know Hank has written or had folks write about it in The Voice, our newsletter too, but I think that's a great idea. And thank you for staying on it and reporting back to us also. Very helpful. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm Peter Warfield, head of Library Users Association. We're very glad that the library has now gotten back to 7-day-a-week operation, but they seem to be putting out, and the Chronicle recently published something that stated that basically everything is back to pre-COVID levels. Well, that's not the case. The library has cut every single evening hour at all of its branches by 1 hour where they were open until 9 o'clock. And that also affects programming. The library, in many cases, is favoring virtual programs of all kinds and doesn't even let people know that Zoom programs are accessible by telephone, as since your invitations to these meetings mentioned that. The library even got an 800 number after we made some noises about the inaccessibility for folks who just have a phone or don't want to have access via Zoom. There are privacy issues and so on. So they got an 800 number, but they don't have any mechanism for giving it out. All those virtual programs, especially ones that are exclusively virtual, require you to RSVP via a computer, provide an email address, then they send you the email information, still not telling you at any point until the email arrives that you can actually participate by phone. So in many ways, the folks that are less connected are greatly disadvantaged by the direction that the library is taking. And again, there's nothing wrong with having electronic programs and so on, but not to let people know publicity-wise with flyers and information. The library, for example, has sent 2 letters to folks during COVID about openings, about programs. For those who are connected via email, they send once a week, plus additionally once a month, information about what's going on at the library. And so those are ways in which people, a whole set of folks who are less connected are being abandoned, and library services in many respects are being reduced. Available copies for checkout. So there's a whole question of quiet reductions of service and disparate impact of some of what the library is doing, which disadvantages the folks that are less connected. So those are things we would like to bring to people's attention and also work on improving so that the library serves everybody and lives up to its slogan of free and equal access.
Thank you, Peter. Yeah, I know as Haight, we're also aware of the library hasn't gone back to its full hours as it previously had, because we used to meet at the Park Branch Library, and that's why we're here today in Flywheel back in person. Grateful to be here, but yeah, because they're not back to their full hours, so that's definitely something to keep on them, keep pushing for them to restore fully back. Yeah, and so yeah, I think we're just doing general announcements too. Also now, or updates for announcements. I think. Oh yeah, go. Okay. Oh, we moved on to announcements. Yes. If you have, folks on Zoom have any announcements, please raise your hand. But yeah, Bruce.
Yeah, I've got a few announcements. Couple of announcements. So first is you may have seen some flyers being posted along Page Street. Their MTA is seeking to make Page Street permanent slow street. And they're going to be putting diversion down across to Vistara. And that's actually going to happen pretty soon. There's going to be a meeting on Tuesday at the MTA to present it and have public comment about it when people think about kind of the whole program, what's going on. I mean, there's some good things. I live right around the corner on Page Street here, so like right here. And so it's been kind of some parts I really love, some parts I really can't stand. And like for instance, losing almost a half a block of parking has created even more problems for the residents that live around here to compete for parking with not only patrons to the neighborhood, but also workers with the neighborhood. And it's just not fair. And this city loves to divide and conquer. They love to have people fighting with each other. So this is kind of one of those ways that they do that. But the 17th, the MTA, you can go and talk about it. And just if you walk around the neighborhood, on Page Street, you'll see them posted on the telephone poles. If you can read them, they've got kind of that also. The second thing is on February 5th, will be the Kaiser half marathon. And that's going to run through Panhandle. It's going to be a loop through the Panhandle and then back into the park all the way down the Great Highway. So just be aware that Fell and Oak might be affected. I don't have enough information yet on it. The group, I belong to the San Francisco Amateur Radio Club, which is actually the oldest amateur radio club in the country. We do the communications for almost all the marathons. And so I don't quite have all the details yet, but it's going to be on February 5th. So it's a Sunday, so just be aware. You know, you've got plans, you got people coming around, you know, it's going to be very busy around that time. The full marathons come right up Haight Street. So it's even, can be even, you'll love it or you can hate it. It's that whole thing. So that's all I got. Thank you.
Yeah, no, any more announcements? All right. Well, I think we might close out a little bit early tonight. But yeah, thanks to everyone for coming. Thanks for coming in person. It's good to see everyone. It's nice to be back.
Yeah, be part of our experiment here.
Yeah. Thanks for and folks joining on Zoom. Yeah, it was a little bumpy, but we did it, and yeah, I'm sure it'll only be smoother.